Welcome back to Common Sense. I'm Wendy Bell. Can we talk about Satan becoming fashionable? I mean, has this been going on for a while and I've been like in the clouds somewhere? Satanic symbols on clothing. I got 18 million search results when I Googled that. 18 million Satan is in advertising and in logos, in music, and certainly in movies. Celebrities who flash satanic hand signals, it's presented like it's really no big deal, but it is a big deal, particularly to parents. All of this stuff is the exact opposite of how I've tried to raise my sons. And I think we need to go back to the Super Bowl and the Grammys from last year to discuss how ubiquitous this moral decay in our society has really become. So let's bring back the panel. Dan O'Donnell hosts the Dan O'Donnell Show on News Talk 1130 WISN in Milwaukee. Melanie Collette hosts Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast, New Jersey. And Steve Sanchez hosts the Steve Sanchez Show on KDWN out of Las Vegas. Dan, you're up first. Last year's Super Bowl, Rihanna's halftime show at State Farm Stadium drew 102 FCC complaints. Too much genital grabbing, one complaint said. Very raunchy for a family to watch. Glorifying being a stripper and air humping, people said, right? It was a bridge too far for many viewers. This hypersexualization, Dan, like how do you put the genie back in the bottle?
You don't. I mean, if people are just waking up to the fact that pop stars are grabbing their privates, I'd like to introduce you to Michael Jackson in 1983 and all of the issues that he had. I mean, this unfortunately, sex sells in a secular society. We have been hypersexualized really ever since the sexual revolution of the late 1960s, early 1970s. And now that this has just been so hyper focused on with the rise of the internet and the easy availability of literally any type of pornography that you could ever possibly dream up at your fingertips, in your pocket at all times. I mean, how is mainstream celebrity or pop culture to keep up with that? Well, it's to push the envelope ever further. And whether that's to, pretend to worship Satan or whatever it was. Who is that singer who ripped off Tom Petty a whole bunch of times? Who was doing his devil worship thing at the Grammy? Sam Smith. I really couldn't remember his name. I just remember he totally ripped off Tom Petty and got sued for it. Or whether it's Rihanna or Beyonce or any one of them. I mean, you look at a pop star's show, right? And it's like none of them are wearing pants. I think the last woman who sang on stage and wore pants was Celine Dion. But it's they constantly have to compete with the internet for being more and more outrageous.
I agree. You're absolutely right. I'm laughing because it's so obvious, right? I mean, Steve, Janet Jackson's Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction with Justin Timberlake. You guys remember? Of course, who could forget? The FCC got more than 500,000 complaints, you guys. 500,000 complaints way back then. Rihanna's gyrations from last year only got about 100. I mean, are we too desensitized in the last 20 years? Sex is just no big deal. It's part of the decay.
It is. I mean, I think the Janet Jackson incident was kind of what put the Super Bowl, or at least the Super Bowl halftime show, into a whole other level, because every year there's always been this, thing to compete, and everybody's talking about, oh my God, the over-sexualization and the Satanic and the Illuminati and all this other stuff that goes on. Look, is the devil real? Yes. Are there some celebrities that may have some allegiance to Satan? Sure. Are we ever going to know who they really are? Of course not. Are we going to continue down this trajectory of over-sexualization to sell music and movies because of social media? Of course, sadly, it is.
It's part of the communist agenda. Taking down the 10 Commandments from our schools, ending school prayer, destroying family values. I mean, it's all very decided and purposeful. Am I wrong?
It's very intentional, and understand, people need to take this personally. This is an outright attack on your relationship with God, on your relationship with good. That is what this is. And you need to take it very seriously. And, Steve is very right. It's not going to go away. So what we need to do is take this opportunity to make sure we point it out everywhere that it lives and hides, because that's exactly what Satan is trying to do here, is trying to camouflage and hide the fact that it's evil. And I'm going to disagree with Dan just on the part about pretending to worship Satan. If you're pretending to worship Satan, you're worshiping Satan. There is no such thing as pretending and still being a God worshiper. It does not work that way at all.
All right,
People
Dan.
need to understand that and be clear about it.
Dan, hop in there.
Well, what I was talking about is they do the affectations of this Satan worshiping. I mean, Metallica is doing this stuff. Pretty much every heavy metal band has been doing this since about the early to mid 1980s. Ozzy Osbourne calling himself the Prince of Darkness. Whatever it is. I mean, Melanie, you're absolutely right. It's inappropriate that it's being shoved in front of a mass consumer audience. I'm just saying that it has become cool to pretend. You know, are they going to the Church of Satan? I would doubt it. Are they worshiping Baphomet or whatever demon is the popular one du jour? No, but it's cool to be edgy. It's cool to be hypersexualized. It's cool to be evil and, mysterious. That's sort of what I am kind of getting at here.
Wait.
If
So
you're
you mean
doing that, messing with the spiritual realm, and that's nothing to be played with. It's no joke. It's nothing to pretend about.
Steve, go ahead. Steve, hop in.
So first off, Wendy, I got to give you a lot of credit for having the boldness to actually talk about this.
Yes.
No one does it. Kudos to you for actually doing something and talking about it. But I'll leave you with this. Just look at the statue of Baphomet. What does that look like to you? Just look at it. Look at its whole body. Look at its face. You tell me what that looks like and what that symbolizes and what's being pushed today in America. You tell me, and I think people need to figure that out very quickly.
Yeah, I agree. And Dan, I want to bounce back to you because these phones, as we've all said, they give our kids instant access to content we disagree with, right? So how about the study that discovered 12 was the age that most kids first were exposed to pornography, and 41% said they saw it at school. Now, Dan, aren't you a dad of daughters?
I have one daughter and two sons, one of whom
You have one
turned
and two,
13
okay.
not that long
Oh,
ago.
God.
And yeah, exactly. He's got a phone, and my older son, who's 16's got a phone, and we tried to hold off as long as humanly possible, and it's almost impossible because all of socialization is now for these kids done over the phone. And we eventually relented and got our 12-year-old a phone because he was practically in tears because he was missing out on so much socialization that was going on with all of his friends because they all had phones, he didn't. But it's just so terrifying trying to navigate that.
Hard.
We put as much protective software on the phone.
Right.
So
I mean, you can only do what you can do. Right.
What's that?
I was saying you can only do what you can do. Steve, I want to give you my final 30 seconds. What do you want to say to your granddaughter, Steve? How are you going to keep her safe? Just be there?
I'll tell you, I'm old school. There's a patriarch and a matriarch of the family. Maybe a lot of people don't agree with it. That's the problem and the decay of America. It's time for men to be men again, not limp-wristed, no hair on their chest, sissified men. Real simple.
I love you. The emasculation of men. I hear you guys. Thank you. I love having you here. I really appreciate you all.